It's working.
There we go.
It's time for us to begin our meeting, and we're going to change what we had started with, and the prayer tonight will be given by Roger Law from the Gary Gray's group and from the Southwest Corridor group. Roger, come.
Yes, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, we praise you, we worship you, we glorify you, and we adore you, Lord. Thank you for your mercy and your grace, your everlasting love and kindness. And Lord, that you would be with us this evening. Bless us with the power of the Holy Spirit to lead us and help us understand and teach us truth. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I hope everybody has had an opportunity to get some food and refreshments. We have, I'm going to make just a couple of announcements before I introduce our speaker and our program. If you will notice over on the right-hand side, we have a lady who has petitions. If you're interested in signing, it has to do with impeaching or withdrawing our governor, and that's strictly up to you. And next month, we are going to have a superb speaker, just like we're going to have a good one tonight and a good program. And this is the editor of the Beacon, the publisher of the Beacon in Roseburg, Oregon. And he's just a magnificent person, and his writings and his works are great. So I hope you'll mark the 14th, I believe it is, of next month that you will be with us. And we're hoping that you will all learn a lot and be able to find things that you can participate in that will make a difference in our world. This club that we have here is kind of an outgrowth of a group of us who started working with Gary Gray and Roger Law and a few more people. And in it, we were able to get petitions signed in Tualatin, Tigard, and King City that said, no light rail. And we found there were other issues, so we have continued going. So I wanted to let you know that Gary had a part in the fact that we're here. So, but don't blame him if you don't like what we're doing now. He's been busy with other things. Gary will inform us about our wonderful Oregon forest and the things that we can do instead of burning them up and having a lot of dead trees and a lot of problems with our forests. And he knows what he's talking about. This is a man who deals with lumber and with logs. It isn't like he's a Johnny-come-lately. This is a field he knows well. And I don't want to take his time. I want Gary to come and share the things that they're doing and inform us, because I think it's exciting that we have some future, a better future for our forests.
Kind of old home week here. She's right. I was one of the guys that started this club. We ran the light rail petitions here in the Tigard and Tualatin and King City, and we were very successful with that. It was a lot of work, but it was very refreshing, and everybody that was involved with it, that worked real hard with that effort, you got a lot to be proud of, because there is no light rail running down 99 like there would have been without you. Unfortunately, that kind of burned me out. That was a lot of work. I think it burned a lot of people out, because we went against everything. We went against the whole establishment. We had every mayor in every town was against us. Of course, the Oregonian, all the TVs, both parties for the most part. I mean, the Republicans did help us a little bit, but reluctantly. But the Democrats were hardcore. We even had Obama's group was against us, Organizing Against America, and they went against us. We had $10,000 raised for our entire campaign. They had well over 120. Give you an idea that the people that weren't involved. At the start of it was 75-25 against us. Halfway through, it was getting close to 50-50. When we came to the election, and Tiger, Gordon would attest to this. We were down about 1,400 votes 2 weeks going into it. We were down 350 votes a week from the end of it, and we pulled it out by 150. We reinvented the electoral process is really what we did, and you guys, Art, Sally, and everybody that was involved, you really have something to be proud of. So anyway, so back to the story. I got pretty burned out about it. Took some time off, and during that time off, I was convicted that there was another avenue that we really had to take a look at. What we did for Tiger, Tualatin, and King City, we really needed to do for the state of Oregon. And it was not so much a political battle as it is a spiritual battle. And what I mean by that is so much of what we're up against now is almost a religion, the way people have to live their lives to be politically correct or whatever. And what it's doing is people have got to be exhausted, having to live their life the way they're having to live their life. And I was convicted about, well, let's have the battle being for the forest as far as stewards of the forest, as God ordered us to do, rather than worship the forest. And me and Roger and Walt talked about this off and on, just sort of something we talked about. We were all really convicted, and we always thought this was a way to reinvigorate what we were doing before. So I'm at my church men's group at church, and Pastor Brett Nieder goes, some of you guys out there have a ministry, and you're waiting for the right time. I tell you what, there is no right time. The time is now. And I go, it can't be me. Because this is big. Bigger than I really wanted to do. And so I'm convinced myself that he's talking about somebody else. And pull into the post office on the way home, go and pick up my mail, and who's there but Roger. I go, Roger, you can't be here. He said, can't. And I explained what had happened. He's talking to me. This is confirmation. You've got to do it. You've got to do it now. And so, I said, okay. Have the state either sue or however the federal government to turn the land. So, I sent out some alerts to people, some of you in the room, first person that comes to the meeting almost, Kay Bridges. And she was lit on fire about this. Last person I expected. I knew her arm's length, but, a lot of things we didn't agree with or whatever, her way of doing things. When she heard what we were doing, she goes, I was waiting 20 years for this. She spent her whole life studying all about what this is about. The federal government not having title to this land. That was her big thing, title. And God forbid you say, the federal government owns the land. That's a 10-minute discussion right there. She was the most amazing person. And she will always be a big part of our group. Most of you know she died last Friday. And just a moment of prayer for her. So what is this about? What are we doing here? We're looking at a new way of reaching people that are unreached. We've practiced this. We've actually done some little outreaches to the communities and to the people in the, when we're doing our little presentations. We've done door-to-door with it. We've gone to town halls with it. And what we're finding is it goes across the spectrum. What we're saying is, why shouldn't everybody in this room be able to buy 10, 15, 20, 1,000 acres up in the woods to make your own Shangri-La?
It's a good idea.
Would anybody like to do that?
Yes.
Okay. That's the way it was supposed to be. And there's some reasons why it's not, but none of it holds water. And looking into what the legal arguments are, ramifications, and all that stuff, we found that it really is on our side. Two Supreme Court decisions went towards the state. So, lo and behold, we're just following the Holy Spirit. Lo and behold, we're finding out that we have a good argument. Even though when we went in here, we're just going, sounds kind of crazy, but let's try it. Let's just run this petition and get people talking about it. Because that's the bottom line. Win or lose this petition, we want people to discuss whether or not we should be properly managing the forest or leave it as is to where it's mismanaged and unmanaged. So that is a huge argument that we can take to the people and change minds and change lives. When I was a basketball coach and a baseball coach, Little League and stuff like that, first meeting we'd always go, we don't care if we're going to win or lose as long as we have fun. It's just that winning's a lot more fun than losing.
That's right.
Anybody here tired of losing?
Yes.
Exactly. Why do you think your numbers are shrinking? People are tired of losing. We're going to win. And that's a big change. When we ran our petitions and everything, we won 10 out of 12. We got real used to winning. Right here in Portland. We were kind of unstoppable. Why? Because we put God on our side. We just did what God wanted us to do. If God's not in it, it's not worth doing. And that's the way we look at it. The reason we won is because we went around trying it. Rather than going to the, all these phony town halls at the courthouse or down at the municipal house or TriMet or where everything's stacked against you, they'll listen to you, and then when the vote comes, you're out the window, right?
Yep.
Sounds like Salem, doesn't it? So what we did is we took the petition round, and we went around those politicians. Because the politician and the spine are polar opposites, except for one. But anyway, so what we did is we went to the people. And so when that 75-25 was against this, when we went up to the person's house, right at this time, went up to someone's house, and you could talk to them person to person. You could build anyone. When you talk to them person to person, everything changes. Because you're actually in their house when you're on their doorstep. And what we found with what we're doing now, we're talking the most hardcore Democrats, and they're freedoms. People that I would never go to that door, ever in 100 years, because I get my head tore off. But they're loving us, and we're loving them. It's different. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around Salem this time. Same thing we did in TriMet. Go around the politicians. They're not your friend. They're all doing what you got to do to survive. So what you do is you go to people. So we're going to do the whole thing, only in the state, and use Gordon's system and change minds. And if you change minds, then you change elections. But you're not going to do it the way we're doing it. So what's our points to this whole thing when we go up and talk to people? First thing we say, it's not fair. You can't really see this very well. But if you look at it, the dark states are the states that the federal government owns a lot of their land. Like in our case, it's 53%. The other side, everything's like 1%, 2%, all the way up to 10%. That's Michigan. That's not fair. That's like two different countries. We're saying the whole thing has been written, it's supposed to be fair. It's not fair. That's our main point. And what does that do? Let's say our thing comes through, gets sold to the state sells it to people. People have their little Shangri-Las out in the woods. All of a sudden, the forests get healthy. Because now they're managing their own little forests. And those little forests get healthy. The wildlife gets healthy. The water gets cleaner. The air gets cleaner. The forest fires stop. And all of a sudden, we have a total Shangri-La out there. It takes time. But people can own their own land, whether it's 1,000 acres or 100,000 acres, and take care of it properly. Right now, they're fighting whether or not they will thin the forest, which means take a few trees out that are ready to go up and, do another paradise. And they can't get that through. Walden, or Wyden couldn't get that, well, they finally did. But still, that's a Band-Aid on cancer. So, you've got healthier forests. Now you have extra trees. What do you do with them? You start selling them or managing them properly. You take care of PERS, $25 billion in debt right now. You take care of the schools, not completely, but at least you fund them properly. You take care of the roads, bridges across Columbia. All of a sudden, you have a business from a healthier forest that's producing more trees than it's ever produced before in the biggest forest in the world, which is 50,000 square miles that the federal government owns. And the trees are healthier. The whole thing is healthier. But right now, we're neglecting it. It's totally mismanaged. And it's dying and it's burning. That's our argument. The final thing is that the rural communities all of a sudden have a livelihood that they haven't had for 60 years. You could actually live in places like Coos Bay, Brookings, and Klamath Falls, and Oak Ridge, and have a job. And not have to move here and work for Nike or Intel. So what we're talking about doing is giving Oregonians a voice. Just like we gave them a voice in Tiger, to say, yes, I want to take care of these forests properly. Yes, I want to be able to own land down in the forest. And yes, this is unfair, and I think that the state of Oregon should own that land and manage it properly. That's what we really are talking about. And we'll get to the rest of it here in a minute, but it's a whole new way of looking at this whole thing that you guys have been fighting for a long, long time. Unfortunately, you've been fighting with rules drawn up by the other side.
Yes.
And you've also been fighting with one arm tied behind your back, while they have both arms in front of them. In other words, you don't have God in the picture, which is half of the fight. I would say 3/4 of it. But you got that in your back, that you can't talk about God. You can't talk about God. Oh, really? Why not? Let's talk about God. Let's talk about it. You can talk about your stuff. Let's talk about God. Let's talk about evolution. Let's talk about global warming. Let's talk about it all. And see what happens. Open the whole floodgate and take it to them. So, the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to have fun. Not only by winning, but we're going to have fun things to do. Like next Tuesday, we're gonna have a question and answer. But before the question and answer, we're gonna have a little golf tournament at putt-putt golf over at Walt 9 Degrees. It'll be the K Bridges Memorial Golf Tournament. So be there, 5:30 or 6 or whatever, play 9 holes in her memory, and then come and ask us all the questions. We just gave you the highlights. There's a lot that we've learned over the last 2 years that you guys are going to be very interested in to see how this works and why it will work, because we will win this thing. The next person that will be talking will be Walt Drysdale, and he's going to talk about why God in this battle.
Well, good evening, King City. Hey, Kay was a great friend of mine. She such a great friend that she influenced me into becoming a Facebook junkie.
You gotta be closer to my,
Okay.
you're old and deaf.
And she influenced me into becoming a Facebook junkie, but she also gave a heck of a testimony. Every one of us is sure that she's with God in glory right now because of her testimony. One day she came in and she was just so proud because she led one of her friends to the Lord, and she was just beaming that day. That's how I would remember her, as beaming, because she did something really great. Well, I'm going to talk about what it's like to be an American here in Oregon today. How many of you believe that Americans have been blessed by God throughout our history?
Yes.
We have changed the world. I believe that, and I know you do too. America has truly been blessed by God with a tremendous inheritance, which includes a rich history, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, fantastic land, and a constitution guaranteeing all of them because we historically consulted God. But today, all of these things are under assault. But the one we're focused on tonight, is the land, which in Oregon is mostly under federal control. The Bible tells us in Luke 12:48 that for unto whomsoever much is given, much is required. We are therefore required by God to be good stewards of all that He has given us. And man's earliest requirement was to tend the garden, as written in the book of Genesis. So how do we recover our rightful land? We will start first by taking God at His word. In Mark chapter 11, Jesus answereth and saith unto them, have faith in God, for verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto the mountain, be thou removed, and be cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his own heart, but shall believe that these things shall he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Therefore I say unto you, what things ye ever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye will receive them, and ye shall have them. That's not me talking, that was Jesus. It simply means that faith can move mountains and give victory to God-sized projects like recovering our land. So we start by seeking God's counsel, by praying, then following His direction, and then petitioning God for the desired results. You say, but that this is an impossible task. Let me tell you about a man in the late 18th century and early 19th century that succeeded in such a task. His name was William Wilberforce. He started a movement working inside the British government to stop the slave trade. He was influenced by a minister named John Newton, the author of Amazing Grace. John told William about the horrors of the slave trade, as he was a former slave ship captain before God broke John and brought him to repentance. Wilberforce worked towards this goal most of his life by constantly praying and seeking God's counsel. God blessed, and he saw the slave trade stop before his death. Well done, he changed the world. As a result of this, our current oldest commissioned warship, the USS Constitution, was not scrapped, but it was pressed into service patrolling the west coast of Africa to prevent slave ships from violating the ban. And that's the only reason that ship survives to this day. There is another story of people blessed by God getting into serious trouble. The nation of Israel had nearly lost the tribe of Benjamin in a bloody civil war caused by sin. A horrible crime was committed by the Benjamites, and it resulted in the 11 other tribes demanding justice. When the request was denied, they went to war with Benjamin. After being soundly beaten in early battles, Israel finally consulted God about the situation, and God answered and brought closure to the war. But the cost was great and the outcome messy. The final thing that the scripture says is that there was no king in Israel, and every man did what was right in his own mind. It seems that we have that same problem today, learning nothing. You can read the whole gritty story in Judges 19, 20, and 21. It's an extremely long story. So we are going to continually seek God's will and pray to activate God's power, since the battle we are engaging in is more spiritual than legal or political. I strongly encourage you to seek God's counsel in all things that you do, and together we will change Oregon. Amen.
And I'm the newest member on Forest, Oregon. And I just got back last night from vacation, so I'm trying to catch up. I want to ask everyone here, who owns the land? Okay, we remember in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's Genesis 1:1. So everything belongs to God. Genesis 1:26, God created man in his own image. He created them male and female. He put Adam in the garden, and he told them to subdue the garden and have dominion over it. Today, we have people pushing what those definitions really mean. Well, you have to go back to an old Bible, an old concordance, to find out what the Greek and Hebrew definition means. But a lot of even Christians today don't like what they mean, because they have fallen into the belief of the environmental movement. Subdue means to control, to tread under, to bring in surrenderance. It means to have good stewardship of what God has put into our hands. It doesn't mean to let things grow and just watch them so that fires and insects can destroy them. It means that we have to tend the garden. We use it as we need it, whatever we grow or whatever tree we plant, and we allow it to bring us nourishment, and God renews the world every day. He created it. We are the stewards. Now comes why we're here. The right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievance. When this nation was born, when it came into being, every document that you see up there, from the Mayflower Compact, Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, all have that the sailors that came to this country, Columbus and everything, were looking for land. They were looking for new land. A lot of the people that came to this nation in the beginning came looking for a place where they could worship God the way that they wanted to, not the way a king or a government would make them. So they found this country. They were led here by God. Every single one of them gave God the glory for bringing them to this land. Then comes the ugly part, where there's always a people who wants power and dominion given to a government. The question is, does that government have the right? North America declared its independence in 1776. What this gave them is control over the people, the territory within its borders, and all the natural resources within that border, even rivers, streams, and oceans that bordered with that state. There were 13 colonies, and all had these rights. Down the line, 3 more states joined in, and they got the same rights. What's wrong with the West Coast? Why don't we have those same rights? That's a question to ponder. They also succeeded in getting all the land that the Crown didn't own, and the only land that they didn't have title to was the ones that already had deeds of title by other citizens. So that was no issue. If you bought the land before America declared its independence, the land was yours. But America was independent and did have all of the ownership of the land within its borders. In 1781, 5 years after the independent states developed the Treaty Article of Confederation. The Article of Confederation states that each of the 13 colonies had rights to everything, as I stated before. The rights to all the natural resources, every piece of land within its border, everything within its territory. The only thing that they succeeded was whatever they deemed the federal government needed, which was usually a limited amount of territory within its borders for military bases, post offices, schools, and government buildings. Never, 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 I have a group of books back there all from the 1800s. If you go and you read through them, never will you read that the federal government had the right to seize land for preservation or any such matter. The land belonged to the state and care of for the people. It ended in 1783. Cost a lot of sacrifice of blood, American blood. People who fought to maintain this country, the free country that they wanted. Within several years, they had several donations and parcels of lands were sold that were donated, and the total was brought down to $71 million. At which time, the federal government had a deal with the states that they would be able to take land to raise the funds to pay off the debt that they had from the Revolutionary War. It was paid down to zero in February of 1835, the only day that America was debt-free. Okay. Oregon became a state in 1859. Just remember that year. President Andrew Jackson vetoed legislation that would have permitted the federal government to maintain control of the land and the monies that were raised after the debt was paid. Andrew Jackson stated that it was the state's right to regain their land and the monies that the federal government still had in its possession after the Revolutionary War ended. You think the federal government wants to give up what it took under false, under that pretense? No, it wanted it. Okay, the federal government has control between 30 and 80% of the land, as a map that's back there from the middle of the United States of America to the west coast, which is sugar. In the Constitution, what powers are given to the United States over the territory that has become a sovereign? A territory that has become a sovereign is a baby state. So what it's doing is it's agreeing that once it reaches the stated number of residents in its state and has elected members into Congress to go and speak for them, they will be recognized as a state. Okay. When a state is erected, a change occurs. It is no longer just a territory. It is yielded by a compact. 10 Peters, page 667, it is said that the United States cannot exercise acts of ownership over a state. Once a territory is sovereign and is recognized as a state, the federal government must return all of its land to the states, whatever is within its borders. Does the federal government want to do that? No. So several times, different states have had to go to court and file grievances against the federal government, and they won. But the federal government still fought them. Some states took up to 26 years to gain their land back. Okay. In 1784, it implicit that the compact was the duty of the United States to timely dispose of the public lands within a state borders back to the state, a sovereign. The policy from 1784 into the future, so whatever states join the Union have its land according to this compact. The ordinance of 1784, written by Thomas Jefferson, he was upset because the federal government wasn't doing what they were supposed to, and they were trying to change the writings. So he said, when a territory were admitted into the United States and its population reached the same as the original 13 colonies, it would have the same rights as the original 13 colonies. It is guaranteed to be self-governance to the residents of the new states, guaranteed under the Constitution of the Equal Sovereignty Act. The fundamental principle of the Equal Sovereignty Act is amongst the state has to guarantee under the Constitution of the United States. Each state is guaranteed the same principles that the 13 colonies have, which is the land, because that was prosperity for the state so that its citizens could have a chance at prosperity. The Equal Footing Act doctrine, a right of land is passed when a state is sovereign. While a state has granted a temporary portion of its sovereign powers to the United States, it enjoys all the rights of statehood. The Supreme Court has stated that the United States has no proprietary rights to the U.S. land of a sovereign nation, a sovereign state. So none of the land within what becomes a state, that used to be a territory, the federal government has no right to it. The ordinance of 1785 laid the foundation for public land systems that was to be obtained for essential use such as military bases, post offices, government buildings, and schools. Those were the only things that any of the laws passed would give the federal government. That's the only part that they have right to land. The Enclave Clause and 10th Amendment was written to the size and needed of land to be used for the military or government buildings or schools. If you look at the history books that I have back there, this is continually, and a lot of the battles that were brought up before the courts or the Supreme Court, where different states were trying to get their land that were within their borders as promised. The ordinance of 1787 also stated the same thing. It stated that when a territory became a sovereign and a state, it had the same equal rights as the 13 colonies with equal footing, equal sovereignty. You know, there was to be no difference. Eminent domain. In eminent domain, it is the right of the American citizen to its land. The federal government cannot come and take it from you. They can come and compensate you for it, but it cannot be done unjustly. A state has the right of all its natural resources and wealth contained within its borders. That's in the Vatican Law of Nations in section 244. A lot of our laws come from a lot of the Christian books that were written when the Pilgrims first came here and the Pilgrims were here. They wrote the first constitutions, and everything was taken from the Bible. So whatever document you see in the founding of this nation, it all goes back to the Bible. Okay, my question is, if a state doesn't have all its land, how can it be considered equal footing? How can it be considered a state under the Equal Footing Act and sovereignty? It can't, because it doesn't have all its land. Okay. Each of the original 13 states, with 3 more that were added within 3 years, Vermont, Kentucky, and Tennessee, they all received all of the land with its boundaries, including river streams and waterfronts. What is wrong with Oregon and every state in the mid to the west coast getting what is due to them, which is their land, guaranteed under the Constitution? What is the problem? The problem is, when the nation was formed, the citizens wanted a small government who didn't have enough power to overcome its citizens. Continually, the government tries to take over the citizens. And continually, a lot of Americans have fallen into the belief that the government knows what it's saying, or the scientists know what they're saying. But the law is the law. In the law, there are so many cases in the books that show states that have gone to war with states, with the federal government, to get back its land. And for some reason, the federal government has a hold from the middle of the United States to the west coast. And it's time that we make the federal government comply with the acts that were passed by the Supreme Court about 5 times. And that is why we're here, because we believe that as American citizens, we're here to extort our grievances, which is making sure that our voices are heard. We want our land back, because the government is doing a bad job tending it. It's burning up, it's overgrowing, it's falling, it's being hindered by insects, and it's time that we take control.
Try to be as brief. I'll be as brief as possible for you. I do have some slides to share with you real quickly. Obviously, we've got a problem here. We've shared a bunch of thoughts with you, aspirations with you. We're fired up, and hopefully that you're fired up as well. Let's face it, 53% of Oregon's public lands currently are not ours anymore, and we're going to do something about it. 53% is 50,000 square miles, and I wanted to put this in perspective. 32 million acres, over half of Oregon's land, is controlled by the federal government. It's not fair, and we aim to fix it. So our vision is, as Gary said, is a constitutional amendment or referendum to reclaim public lands from the federal government. I want to share this vision with you because we're exploring different legal approaches and we're looking at the best way to attack this situation. Everybody hear me? No. We believe the petition will drive a whole new discussion, not only here in Oregon, but we expect that it will go national in a very short amount of time. Our mission, we want to encourage wise stewardship of God's creation that leads to economic prosperity for all Oregonians, to enjoy its benefits both economically and recreationally. Wise stewardship is not happening in federal forests. There's a misconception out there that forest managed by anyone is just okay. As long as the forests are managed, I'm okay with that. I don't want anything done to it. Well, there's a distinct difference between a federally managed forest and a privately managed forest. Basically, privately managed forests, the owners manage their land to ensure that it's clear and free of debris. There are roads created, there's access created, there are jobs created, there are communities that benefit from private land ownership. And that's what we're talking about here in a nutshell. Private landowners have skin in the game, whereas federally managed forests have no desire to make a change. But politically speaking, Oregon, obviously, and other western states have been going head-to-head with the feds unsuccessfully for years. So why is that? Army talked a little bit about it. We know one thing, the status quo just doesn't work, and we're going to lean on God to do the heavy lifting. So what if the status quo prevails? Now, let me be the first to tell you that it won't. Aren't you guys tired of forest fires and smoke in the air, mills closing, job losses? I know I am. Lumber mills close all the time because trees are scarce. Now, I need you to think about that for a second. We have a problem in Oregon. Trees are scarce. And what do I mean by that? Well, mills can't get federal land, trees from federal land. They won't let them happen. So mills are closing at a remarkable rate. This is a statistic that should scare everybody. There are 390 mills, well, you can read it, that were available and working in 1980. Over 3/4 of them shut down. When mills close, entire communities go with them. Okay? We don't want that to happen. So how are we going to do it? Well, we've been developing this plan for almost 2 years, like Gary said. We've created 3 separate entities working in concert with each other to accomplish our goals. We have a brand new website, forestfororegonvictoryfund.org, that was launched this morning, not without bugs, I might add, but we're working through them, and I hope that you guys will have a chance to take a look at it the next day or so. You'll find more information, obviously, around the room and by talking with us later, and I hope that you would consider working with us in some way, shape, or form to shape a new discussion here in Oregon. I want you to know that we're in good company. How many out there have heard of Timber Unity? We've got a few hands. Okay. Well, when we started out, we had nothing more than an idea and some prayer time. And as some of you probably know, when you start praying, things happen. Well, boy, are we amazed. Amazing things have been happening, most recently here and across the country. When we started, Timber Unity didn't exist. In June, they were founded in rural Oregon for folks that were against the cap and trade. Well, now, as of August, there are over 53,000 followers on Facebook. And these are, question?
56,000.
56,000, all right. That's fantastic news. See how quickly things change. Obviously, they came together to fight the cap and trade that went through, that tried to go through the Salem courthouse, and obviously it didn't go through. What is interesting, though, is 2 of their members were invited to go to the White House. And one of those folks is a good friend of someone that I'm a friend with, and we have contact back and forth. So the good news is in the last couple of weeks, we've seen 2 people from rural Oregon start Timber Unity, which is now 56,000 members, and 2 of those representatives went to the White House. I mean, it's unbelievable. So the bottom line is Oregon's rural communities are on Trump's radar. Well, you know, I was surfing the internet the other day, as I do fairly often, trying to get some information on Western federal public lands. And I was looking for a specific document. The one that's showing is very difficult to see here, but I have copies of it. I wanted to print it out because I keep giving my copy to someone. Every time we tell the story, we hand out our own stuff. So I was looking for this particular article, and like I've done 10 times before, and I couldn't find it. But what I did find, lo and behold, is a 150-page legal document that was paid for and commissioned by the state of Utah just recently, asking a legal expert team to review Utah's ability to get their Western federal lands back from the federal government. This is the boilerplate legal brief on what we would be talking about in the state of Oregon, and as well as other states that have similar challenges. We find that kind of interesting, to say the very least. Another thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks is Trump/7500 regulations to give Americans more access to federal lands. It's unbelievable. That's what I'm talking about. And last but not least, the latest appointee to the BLM happens to be someone who is a proponent of states' rights and is looking forward to selling land back to the individual states. It's unbelievable. But it's unbelievable. So obviously we've thrown a lot at you tonight. Obviously, if you want to learn more, we'd love to have you on Tuesday night at the Tualatin Island Greens. We've got a place to have some food to eat. It's not quite as nice as what was set up here by Krinos, but I can tell you that there's a driving range, there's a putt-putt golf, little putt-putt goofy golf, depending on where you grew up. We can play a little golf before we start, but at 7 o'clock we were having our regular meeting. I would love you to be there, bring people that you think might want to hear about what we're doing here, and I want to thank you guys all for joining tonight and hearing our story.
Because they weren't doing a good job of it, they weren't making any money for the schools, they were actually costing us that. Kate Brown, that moron, decided that she wanted to buy the land so that she could control it. Because
But we already owned it.
Yeah, they already owned it,
Yes.
but she didn't care. She wanted to sell it for way less than what it was worth, just so that she could maintain the control of it. And
That's right.
Okay, you have a point there.
Yeah.
But anyway, question.
That was my question, is what are we going to do when we finally get all this land returned to the state? How are we going to convince these morons that we have in charge here in Oregon that it should belong to the people, not the state?
Well, here's the thing. That's not what we're going to be petitioning. Okay? And we had your friend Ralph, when we had a 2-hour meeting on that very topic about the Elliott Forest and how from 1920 to 1965, basically it was just an area, the bottom 100 miles of Oregon across from basically Gold Beach over to Burns. All of that land was basically Elliott Forest, roughly. Small amount of land, but it fed all of the lumber mills in the state of Oregon for, was it 65 or 80 years? Up till 1965.
750 million board feet.
And by the time we finished, by the time we were done, they were done, and then they, called it, when in 1965, there were more trees in it than there were when they started in whatever, 1890 or whatever. So, but you're exactly right. The state will obviously mismanage it, but what our goal is here is not to tell the state what to do with the land, because that's already been decided by what Army was talking about. But What we're saying is turn the land over to the state, so the state can manage it properly, and then it's our job at that point in time, which may be 20 years from now, to convince the state that it's got to turn it over to the people. Okay, but it's obvious that if, say tomorrow, turn it over to the state would know what to do with it. They don't have management. They're trying to get rid of the LA forest because it's costing more than they can't, they're trying to get Oregon State right now, as a matter of fact, for like, I think 800 million or something. It's worth, if they were harvesting off it, it'd probably be worth 2 billion. So you're exactly right. So the point I'm getting at, and the point that we're getting at, that's outside of our discussion. What we want to do is have this federal land that is primarily forest land to be able to turn over to the state so it can be sold to the people. Okay? Everybody in this room should have the ability to buy land out of the federal government. Okay, Jeff, let's go Constitution.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm not going to rain on your parade, because as you made the point,
I read it, yeah.
God reigns.
Amen.
I gave it a two-part question.
Yeah, and I can't answer it. I'm not a constitutional lawyer.
Well, the question was your strategy. Does it distinguish between land that was made part of the federal government as part of the Statehood Act versus land that was acquired by the federal government subsequent to statehood? And you're probably aware that Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, where we get District of Columbia and all these other places, is their statute's been on the books for a couple of generations that delegate that authority back to the federal government. That's an unconstitutional delegation of authority. Is your strategy going in that direction at all?
What we've done, and you're way over my head. Completely. I mean, it's like
Well, it's 6
20 stories over my head. What we've done in the last 2 years, and what really is amazing of what we've done, and Roger has been one of the chief researchers of the whole thing, is we looked at it from the standpoint of this isn't fair. Okay? We basically said that these states are being divided unequally. There's no consistency to the states, which there should be. We should be the same as Nebraska or Colorado's in the same boat. But anyway, we should be in the same. So anyway, our arguments were all pretty simple arguments. Well, lo and behold, miracle of miracles, these guys are one day researching, I can't remember what they're researching, though they're researching for the web page. And 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Ron is, pulling up this thing that Roger's pulled up 100 times that basically, talks about the Enabling Act and those types of things. And the Enabling Act, she briefly covered, is basically how you divide up the land. Lo and behold, they pop up this file, and it's this 150-page brief for the state of Utah. And all 3 points are our points that we've been talking about for 2 years. They have the same points we have, and his conclusion is that it has very good bearing. It doesn't say what, when you get in court, anything can happen. But he said this has legal precedent that you could take all the way to the Supreme Court. Whether it win or not, it's won twice already in the Supreme Court. But, so what they were doing was a feasibility brief is what they're doing. What it would cost and what the chances of winning it were. And it was very, very
Are
positive.
these documents uploaded on your?
Yes, we can give it to you.
I can answer just a little.
Oh, wow.
Go for it, Arnie.
Off of the 8th section of the first article of the Constitution, power is given to Congress to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not to exceed 10 square miles as may be cessioned off particular states and accepted by Congress becomes seat of government of the United States temporarily for such things as military bases, government buildings, schools, and such. but it cannot exceed 10 square miles, and it's temporarily according to the article of the Constitution.
And really, Tuesday night, we'll get into a lot of this, but we can read off of this, you know, his summaries, they're amazing. As we researched it more and more, it became more and more real. Go ahead.
Oh, just a brief question or two. You say 53% approximately of Oregon's land is owned by the federal government?
Control.
Control.
Yeah, cable, yeah, you can say that.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
How much is controlled by the state government? Is
Yeah,
there
about another 10% or something
another
like that.
10%
Yeah.
on top of that, so
So,
63%?
we don't, I'm not sure on the state, but yeah, they control a lot.
So how, on the map, how come the state of Washington doesn't have a bunch of government control?
They do.
They do.
They do, just didn't.
About 45% or something like that. You can't really see those things.
We have really clear blow-up posters of the exact percentage.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
they're not as bad as we are, you know, because there's not as much forest land and there's not as much range land as in Oregon. Just a brief synopsis of how all this happened. Back, you know, in the days that Oregon became a state, there weren't even 10,000 people in the state, which there were supposed to be.
Oh, I see.
So there was nowhere, all that got settled really is the Willamette Valley. So there were legitimate reasons not to have it. So there was no water on the east side, there was no transportation to do the logging, you know, all of these reasons to just not really sell the land. But those reasons, issues no longer exist. So what we're saying is, let's go back to the way it was supposed to be done, back in the 17, 18, 1900s, and let's sell the land, or give the land to the state to sell to the people. Les?
Wait, one more second.
Yeah.
What Ron's holding up is the same thing that's on the screen, but you can actually read the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, and these two actually have alphabetical by state, so you can look at, again, over here. So these are going to be the back of the room, so you can look at it anytime.
Yeah, the 2 years we've been doing this, I mean, we actually meet once a week now because there's so much information that we're gathering. That every week we find something that just blows our mind. And also our timing is so amazing because all the people now are talking about forests. I mean, everywhere you go, people are talking about this. And you know, it's become a national issue. When 2 years ago, nobody even thought about it. And we'll talk about this Tuesday, but I actually got into a talk with Wyden about this. Yeah, and no, it was a great discussion. It was amazing. It was the most liberal group in the world, and they're all agreeing with me. Les, go ahead.
I'm glad you remember my name.
Les, you're awesome. You're one of the guys that helped those.
I remember coming here in
those-
2012, and there was Art Crino
Yes.
as the chief petitioner.
Yeah, you're gonna bring here.
And coming
Come
here
on.
and teaching people how to go get signatures.
You did.
Freaked them out coming from Plaquemines County
You did.
and actually coming over here and talking to you people. So
Yeah.
you're welcome over there anytime.
I hear you.
I've been friends with Ken Ivory, there's a name you
Yeah.
probably know a lot of.
Yep.
He's a Utah congressman.
Yeah.
And he's been involved in this, and I'm sure somewhere in the middle of that, he could probably recite the whole thing to you. So transfer of public lands, I support. I think things are starting to change in Oregon. When we were talking about it 3 or 4 years ago, 2 quick things, and not so much a question, but a concern
No, I appreciate
an
it.
issue. And that is, oh my God, if the federal government gives control to Kate and the Freaks for Dead, well, you know what? We don't get rid of Kate and the Freaks for Dead, so we have to believe that at some point, things are gonna change, and they really are.
That's right.
And so, I fully support transferring the authority and control to the states. Obviously, let them have the national park. Don't screw with Crater Lake people.
No.
Let them have it, okay, we're good. Bigger than 10 square miles, we're fine. But you're talking about them selling that land to the wicked peasants.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different thing.
Yeah.
I want to learn more about that.
Yeah.
Because that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not opposing it, but that's the difference.
That's beautiful.
You're actually coming right out and telling them, oh my goodness,
That's right.
and that means they're afraid.
That's right.
Well, I don't want to pontificate.
No, Les, that's awesome. A little bit about Les. It's true. Him and I can't remember the other guy, that Steve. They coached us all the way through with the petition process. They've got a great. They were one of the guys that did the Milwaukee petitions and all of the fighting that
I
went
don't
on
know
over
what
there.
comment real soon. We'll
Yeah.
move on.
But to your point,
Yep.
And that's the number one question we get is, okay, you're gonna turn it over to Weyerhaeuser. And they're going to clear cut it and it's gonna be a parking lot. And you go, okay, why would Weyerhaeuser do that? The other thing is, are they gonna do any worse than what we got now?
That's perfect.
I mean, the federal government's doing a horrible job right now. You go to Weyerhaeuser land versus their land, and it's night and day. The point is the only argument, hey Susan, how you doing? Yeah, so the only argument they have, like Kate Brown did this week, is leave it the way it is. Don't do anything, because it's